Hello everybody, this is GeneralJannis, and today in GeneralJannis Tactics, the Warhammer 40k channel with a nerdly touch, we will be continuing our look at Thousand Sons units. The Thousand Sons Daemon Prince is now the focus of this review. So let's get started. So today is the 7th of December. I have a Crusade game later today with my Thousand Sons 50 PL, but today, as I said, I will be reviewing the Thousand Sons Daemon Prince, the HQ choice, and it's not so often you actually see Daemon Princes in many of the lists. A lot of people take the sorcerers, of course, this is understandable, but we'll be looking now at the stats and weapons, the damage output, warlord traits and warlock relics that are fitting to the Daemon Prince, the Daemon Prince durability, comparison to other units, and also the Death Card Daemon Prince, and then some builds and uses before we go to the summary and final thoughts. Of course, you can, for the Daemon Prince, you can use the standard model Daemon Prince. I also have this type of Ogroid Thaumaturgos in Greek, meaning miracle maker. So this model could be an alternative Daemon Prince for the Thousand Sons. But let's take a look at the stats and the weapons. So the base stats for the Thousand Sons Daemon Prince, the stat line: 8-inch move, 2+ weapon skill, ballistic skill, 7 strength, toughness 6, 8 wounds, 5 attacks for the Thousand Sons Daemon Prince. The Death Card Daemon Prince has 6 attacks, but the Thousand Sons, he gets 4+ Invul save instead of the 5+ demonic save, so making him quite durable from the get-go. As a change model, he knows and can cast 2 spells per turn and deny 1, so 1 more spell than the Death Card Daemon Prince or the other God's Daemon Prince, so he's also a potent psyker. He has the reroll once for core unit aura. And then he has the Kabbalistic rituals, and he generates 3 Cabal points like the Exalted Sorcerer. The weapons he can have is the Hellforged Sword, which is a strong melee weapon, so basically it would be strength 8, AP -3, and damage flat 3. So it's a high strength melee weapon that there are not so many of those very high melee damage output to units in the Thousand Sons Codex, at least. The demonic axe gets more strength but sacrifice a pip of armor piercing here, so strength basically is 9, AP -2, and a flat damage 3. And then he has the malefic talons, strength 7, AP -1, damage 2. The configuration you can have is you can have a sword and a talon, or an axe and a talon, or 2 talons. If you have the talons, you can do with 2 talons, you will be doing 1 attack each for each talon, so you will be having 7 attacks. Otherwise, you have, for example, 5 attacks with the sword and then 1 with the talon. Don't forget this one. You can also give him wings for 35 points, bringing up to 185 points if you have the sword and the wings, for example. Then the movement is 12-inch and he can fly. And then here we have the keywords. Of course, he can be part of the Great Cult. He's a demon, psyker, etc. So a melee beatstick oriented HQ unit, but still a potent psyker on par with the Exalted Sorcerer and the Sorcerer, at least when they are unbuffed. So because he can cast the 2 spells with +1 to cast like any Thousand Sons psykers. Comparing now the damage output of the different weapons, if we have him with the Hellforged Sword, the Demonic Axe, or the Dual Talons, the blue is the Hellforged Sword. We see here the damage across a variety of targets. Here are the GeneralJannis 31 targets. Here we have Death Card targets, and basically we can see the sword the blue line is basically the best option nearly for all targets. Only some toughness 8 targets the demonic axe is better. Otherwise the sword is better to or equal to the axe. Damage, of course, a bit lower for Death Card, with Death Card getting the benefit of discussing resilience, reducing the damage from flat 3 to flat 2. The dual talons not so good. The talons not so good with Death Card, they become damage 1. But of course, with the Egligen's Orrery for one Death Guard unit, that unit will not be benefiting from Disgusting Resilience. It could be a strong use for a Demon Prince here. You can see the average damage for the GeneralJannis 31 targets, not point corrected, will be doing around 5.5 wounds on average across the variety of targets with the Hellforged sword configuration, a bit less with the axe, and considerably less with the dual talons. One psychic spell that buffs the damage output considerably for the Demon Prince is Swelled by the Warp. He will be getting +2 to his strength and +1 attack. And then the damage is like shown here, so it's higher damage than the previous graph, and we see here that the Hellforged sword now, because it gets +2 strength, so basically coming up to strength 9, then it's strictly better than the axe, so better versus all targets, even toughness 8 targets. And we see before we had 5.4 wounds on average for the GeneralJannis 31 targets, now we have 7, and a little bit less for the axe and less for the talon. So the sword seems to be the best option, especially if you pair it with Swelled of the Warp. So looking at some selected warlord traits and relics that would be fitting for the melee-oriented Demon Prince. For the normal warlord traits, the Undying Form is a strong choice. I think you give him basically Disgusting Resilience, -1 to incoming damage, like Death Guard, subtract 1 from the damage characteristic of the attack. So basically, he can become a more, let's say, with a 4+ Invul save, he even becomes more resilient than a normal Death Guard Demon Prince with his warlord trait. Ether Stride could be an interesting option because basically you give him 3 inch more to his movement. He can charge when falling back, and then it is treated as it can fly with the Ether Stride. So basically you will be getting an 11-inch flying Demon Prince without paying the 35 points for the wing. So that could be an interesting combination, but of course then you can't give him Undying Form. There is a relic where you can give him 2 warlord traits, of course. There are always some shenanigans in the Thousand Sons Codex, but again, this could be an interesting idea if you don't want to pay the 35 points. There are some traits in the cults. For example, the Cult of Mutation, unmodified 6s to hit, give 1 mortal wound additional on the target. Could be interesting, but if you are playing Cult of Mutation, I don't think it's a reason to take that cult just to get this trait. The Cult of Manipulation attacks versus the target cannot reroll hit, wound, or damage rolls, but again, you would probably be playing with Cult of Duplicity or Cult of Time. Cult of Mutation could be interesting, unmodified 6s to hit, giving a couple of more mortal wounds, but again, the Demon Prince can smite and do mortal wounds in other ways as well. If we look at the relics, some selected relics, the Conniving Plate makes sense. I think 2+ save and half incoming melee attacks. So if the Demon Prince is engaged with something that has, let's say, 8 attacks, they can only do 4 attacks on the Demon Prince. So basically in melee, because he will be probably a lot in melee, the Conniving Plate really helps him to not get so many attacks on himself. Another one could be the Warp Weave Mantle. Anything that charges him and gets a 9+ fails, and he gets +1 to his psychic spells. If he's wounded, probably could be useful on a Demon Prince, but I think the Conniving Plate is the better choice, especially if he's going to be stuck in melee a lot of times. If you're playing Cult of Time, the Hourglass of Manat could be interesting. Basically, you revive him the first time he dies. He has the 3 mortal wounds, and then maybe he can then if he can survive 1 more turn and do his melee damage, it could be worth it to taking this relic. Looking at the Demon Prince durability, here we see a variety of weapons. I'm typically calculating to see how many shots or attacks a target can take before being destroyed. Here we have the Thousand Sons Demon Prince, no upgrades here, no traits or relics, etc. So here we can see he can take quite a bit shots of from light armor fire. With a 4+ Invul save, he's quite efficient against anti-vehicle. I mean, normally you wouldn't want things to be shooting at your HQ, but at the late stage of the game, if they come into melee, the opponent falls back, you will be shot and attacked. If we give the Demon Prince the Undying Form, so he has -1 to incoming damage, and the Conniving Plate, so 2+ save, then he can take much more shots and attacks from everything. 14 Meltagun shots, or let's say something like a Heavy Bolter that he's not very strong against. He would be now saving on 3 pluses and only take damage 1. Here we're saving on 4 on 4 pluses and taking 2 damage each. Of course, it helps, especially on damage 2 weapons. This Undying Form, the Disgusting Resilience, is good. He's much more durable than the other HQ choices. For example, here we have Ahriman and the Exalted Sorcerer. They also have the 4+ Invul saves, but they have less wounds, and they have toughness 4. The Demon Prince has toughness 6, of course, much better versus especially the light fire. Here we compare him to a standard Death Card Demon Prince that comes stock with a Disgusting Resilience, basically the Undying Form. So he is stronger than the baseline Demon Prince for some of the weapons here. But we see if we take Death Card Demon Prince with a Rotten Constitution and the Super Rating Plate, so 2+ save and ignoring the AP, he becomes very, very tough versus the light fire. If we give him Hulking Physique, we get very good damage reduction here. We can take a lot of shots from the heavy weapons, but the combination here, Undying Form and Conniving Plate, is a good, come close to the Death Card Demon Prince. So summary of comparison of the HQ choices in melee and durability. Here we see the average damage versus the GeneralJannis 31 targets corrected for 100 points. We see here Ahriman in melee, the Exalted Sorcerer in melee, point corrected, and here we have the Demon Prince with a Hellforged Sword, swelled by the warp, and if he has wings, basically the damage is diluted per point with the wings. We see 3.6 wounds per 100 points on average in melee, better than the other HQ choices, and also higher, for example, like Terminators with Kopeshis. I haven't shown you the data here, but it's less than 3.6. If we give him Swelled by the Warp, he gets 4.7, and this is exactly the same as a Demon Prince with a Hellforged Sword has. The Demon Prince with Hellforged Sword in melee, of course, benefiting in Death Card from the -1 toughness on the opponent, which is basically given the same effect if you increase the strength with Swelled of the Warp. The Death Card, the Demon Prince, can still be the highest damage dealing Demon Prince in melee, because in Death Card we can give him the Warp Insect Hive and other buffs, etc. But still a high, good damage output in melee, and also, as I said, high durability with a 4+ Invul save. He's on par or even a bit better than the Death Card Demon Prince. Of course, when you upgrade him with Super Rating Plate or Conniving Plates, we get better numbers, but they are is more durable than the normal HQ choices. So highest damage output in melee compared to the other Thousand Sons. A Spellcaster on top of this, he's on par with the Exalted Sorcerer and the Sorcerer, +1 to cast 2 spells, but he cannot take the Legion Command upgrades, which can make the Exalted Sorcerer more, let's say, configurable and can cast more spells. He can have more traits, etc. You can also easily you cannot do the Legion Command upgrade for the Demon Prince. That's probably the only downside to him, as I can see, compared to an Exalted Sorcerer. Of course, he's also a bit more expensive. With Swell of the Warp, as I said, he becomes as strong as the Death Card Demon Prince in melee, but then he's as strong in melee, but he has also 2 spells and the 4+ Invul. And as I said, the Death Card Demon Prince can still be buffed to do more damage in melee, as it should be for Death Card. So some selected the builds and uses for the Demon Prince. I think one of the uses, of course, is like a fast melee beat stick, and he's quite durable as well. So a Demon Prince with the wings and the sword and the undying form with a conniving plate. So trait and the relic. He should have the spell of Swelled by the Warp. He can take the spells of Glamour of Change to give him -1 to be hit. He can also take Twist of Fate to if he's really out for some enemy, high value enemy target, that he can come in melee, turn down, let's say, switch off their Invul save, and basically hammer them with the sword. Could be a good combination. You can also, of course, take offensive spells like Doombolt, and he has the Smite, etc. But Swell of the Warp by the Warp, I think it's a good combo. Another role, I mean, if you don't want to give him the very fast movement, and the thing here, if he's very fast and durable, you need something maybe to go with him, maybe some Changord and Lighten, but they die a bit too easily. You can also use him to escort and basically protect the infantry from charges by heroic intervening. He can be escorting, let's say, rubrics, Scarab Terminators. He gives them reroll once to hit. He casts spells. He can take the defensive spells to buff the Terminators. He can buff himself. If something comes close, he can charge it. He can make heroic intervention. As slowly the Terminators roll over the board, could be another use, and then you don't need the wings or the Ether Stride, because you just need to keep up with the Terminators and the Rubric Marines. Cult of if you play the Cult of Time, as I said, Hourglass of Manat Relic for an extra revive could be interesting. And in the Cult of Duplicity, he is not infantry, but he's a monster, and he can also be using the spell to teleport around, coming maybe if there is some spot behind the enemy lines, and he can make his 9-inch charge. Or if you, let's say, have forward deployed some Rubric Marines, maybe he can teleport to them and protect them, etc., etc. But yeah, so you can make him quite mobile with the Cult of Duplicity, and basically he's like an Exalted Sorcerer, but with that can also do a lot of damage in melee. So summary and final thoughts. I think he's an interesting HQ choice, and adds some high melee damage where some of the other choices don't have super high melee damage. He's still a potent Psyker. You're not losing spells or Cabal points like the Exalted Sorcerer. The only downside, as I see it, in that respect, is of course no Legion Command upgrade. Some of those are quite good, like the Dilettant, or some of these Legion Command upgrades, but they are also costing. He's a bit more expensive than the Exalted Sorcerer, but he can do up for that with the damage out, his high damage output. The Hellforged Sword is the best weapon option. The axe is not as good, the Dual Talons either, and Swelled by the Warp is a good spell, synergizing and making him as strong as a Death Card Demon Prince in melee. He's highly durable due to his 4+ Invul, and if you combine it with Undying Form and the Conniving Plate, you give him you get a very durable melee beat stick. So based on this, the data I've seen now, I will probably include him in my 2000 point list. I've seen a lot of lists, but not many people are using the Demon Prince. I would like to hear your comments why in the 1000 Suns, but I think you can combine the HQ choice. Maybe it's Exalted and the Demon Prince, and maybe just a regular Sorcerer or something like that, or Ahriman even. For 2000 points list, you would have a strong base of Psykers, a lot of Cabal points, and then you have the melee beat stick Psyker in there as well. So this concludes the video. What do you think about this analysis? Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, please press like and subscribe to my channel, where I will be bringing you Death Card tactics and also 1000 Suns and Warhammer math hammering analysis, etc. If you want to support my efforts, please visit my Patreon page. If you like this type of data and the tables I've been showing you here, I have a list of such documents. If you join the Patreon, you can get access to these documents, and if there is some math missing, I can quickly make it for you. So with these words, GeneralJannis is signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye-bye.